We will try to take a question or two. So again, if you pop questions into this CDS app, I'll keep an eye on the tablet and try to take a couple of questions. This is sort of the theme of the afternoon, is how do we channel money into the defense industry. I'd like to start with Ukraine seems to be a really interesting example of combat-driven in a technological arms race with the Russians. What's your assessment of where Ukraine is technologically, and should the West be looking, and is it looking to Ukraine in order to develop its own defense industries?
For sure. Tech Force, we unite more than 60 private companies which produce robotic systems, all types. It's sea drones, land drones, again, flying drones, UAVs. And Ukraine is really great in the final solutions. Each of these companies, they work directly with armed forces. We have a special command in Ukraine which called Unmanned System Forces. This command, it runs operation only with robotic systems and solutions. And that is why we have this direct feedback loop from the army. And we could modify and adjust the products right away. So that basically it's like one roadmap and one common project. When private enterprise, they communicate with armies, they change their product and they supply this product right away to the front line. And it's impossible to imagine in any other circumstances. So in this bad war, we gain a lot of battlefield tested and experience projects and products. And Ukraine have a challenge right now with two things, actually. It's a localization of components, because it's one thing to produce a final product, it's another thing to have a fully localized solution. I'm talking not about only Ukraine localized solution, but also final drone only with European Union components. It's a huge challenge for Ukrainian producers to develop such things, and we still need to order part of it from China, and it's not ideal scenario for us. So we are looking for opportunities of localization of components for robotic solutions inside Ukraine. And another challenge is budget, for sure, because only our coalition, we could produce more than 3 million of drones per year. And last year, government was capable of procuring only third part of it. So actually, 63% of capacities, they were not under government contracts or deals, and it means that companies, they wanted to produce, but they had no chance, because to start your military production, you still need budget. So Ukraine has this huge real-life experience in robotic system in the front line, but we need budget and we need truly partnership with European Union industry to push it for our common, bigger security frame.
So I'd like to ask Jamie and Tavi, are you involved at all in the Ukrainian industry? Are you linked with them technologically or financially?
Yeah. If I may start, happy to be here. Thank you very much for having me. The first, of course, I just like to reflect that I think one lesson learned from Ukraine definitely that the defense industry is a part of the defense capability. If you do not have an industry, you do not have a capability. I think I tried to argue it over the decade from mid of 2000s up to now, and up to now the armed forces start to understand that basically you just not need a stock, but you really need the capability to produce, and basically this kind of adaptability really that if the situation are going to change, you're able to adapt. But what concerns our involvement, that definitely our industry, right now I'm speaking on behalf of the Estonian defense industry, that I think close to 15 companies daily basis from our industries with their products back there in Ukraine on the battlefield. And definitely I think for us, of course, the main goal, help to Ukraine win the war. And the second goal, of course, that if you are the defense industry player, I think you're not able to sell any your product next 5 to 10 years if you not have this kind of first-hand battlefield experience from Ukraine. If this was
So you need to be in Ukraine.
Exactly. You must be there. I've myself also invested close to 15 defense startups. And I think that the best advice what you can give the defense startup, get as fast as you can to Ukraine, get this kind of customer feedback. Do you see that your tech is really capable to make this job what you really promised that it will make? That in that respect, definitely, if you are going to the large defense exhibitions, that if it was like that in past, that there was a question from your customers that to your home country use your tech. I think right now is two questions. The first is the same, and the second definitely is your tech used in Ukraine. Is this first-hand battlefield experience really there?
And Jamie, what's your experience been of Ukraine and any sort of links on what's going on there?
I think there are a lot of similarities with what the other speakers have highlighted. I think the most important thing to what Katarina raised is when it comes to innovation, culture matters, and that's been incredibly important for Ukraine. Brave Ukrainian engineers, citizens who had specialized training, who surged their capabilities in support of the defense of their country. That has really marked the Ukrainian environment, no matter what support they got from abroad, which is incredibly important, I think, for other frontline states that are worried about existential challenges. We've learned a number of other things from our experience at Palantir in Ukraine, I think are very similar to other US defense tech companies. We're a software company that integrates data for decision makers, whether it be in the military or in the corporate world. And so we have used that great engineering talent in the country to staff a lot of our projects. The other thing that we learned, though, is important, ideally, to be in that ecosystem as early as possible. We were not doing business in Ukraine before the full-scale invasion. We quickly threw ourselves into the fight, since part of our mission as a company is to support the US and its allies. Our CEO was the first Western CEO to visit with President Zelensky in Kyiv several months into the war. But it's even better if you can be there before the conflict starts. And so that's one lesson we've certainly taken away as we try now to deepen our work with other frontline states, be it in Europe or in the Indo-Pacific. Get there early, get to know the ecosystem. It's much easier to build those partnerships when you don't have to do it in the middle of the early part of the conflict. Another lesson, which I'm not sure, I'm hopeful that the US has learned and other allied governments have learned, but funding of innovative tech from the Western side has been a huge challenge. There's a lot of Ukrainian resources that have been thrown into the fight, obviously. But when it comes to funding things beyond hardware, what we found in the US, and I think other defense tech companies did as well, is the US Department of Defense, the US system didn't know how to fund those innovative capabilities. They were much more used to purchasing tanks, sending missiles, even providing planes, than funding innovative software and AI-defined tools. That's, I think, slowly starting to change, and especially with the new administration in the US, that's partly why you see the defense tech companies pushing DoD to change its procedures so that we don't have this challenge again, where there's another conflict, and these companies cannot even get funding from their own government. I will say, I think that some of the European governments showed that they were more innovative and flexible in that regard, and actually stepped up to help the Ukrainians pay for some of the most advanced capabilities. But the US was far too slow in the early phase of the war.
Tavi, you wanted to?
Yeah, maybe a short comment exactly about procurement. That I'm a bit more skeptical also about Europe and European government procurement programs. That we see this agile approach what is in Ukraine, but I think there are not so many lessons learned that how we are redesigned our procurement in Europe and European countries as well. That we still basically moving very slow. Basically, we still do those 10 years planning processes, and basically this is exactly my point that there are not so much even the stock needed, but exactly this kind of capability, industrial capability, adaptability that if there is something happened, that you are ready, you have this industrial complex ready to basically act. And this is definitely not only consists the hardware, the same part the software. And I think what wins Finland really did, I think it was clever that they, instead of basically buying, for instance, UHV stock, they exactly start to pay this kind of readiness payment to companies that they really keep up this extra production capacity, that if there are one day it's really needed, this capacity is really there.
Denmark has been a real leader in placing direct orders with the Ukrainian defense industry as opposed to simply sending equipment to Ukraine. Do you deal with the Danes, and what is your view on that approach to financing, to actually be pumping money directly into the Ukrainian defense industry?
Yeah, actually it was a revolution for international affairs in terms of arm industry in Ukraine, because of the reason which I already mentioned, that capacities of production is few times bigger than actually ability of our state to procure it. So that we were waiting and awaiting our partners that it's vital to procure Ukrainian solutions, because our industry is so integrated with the front line, and our solutions could truly provide this asymmetric effect with huge state as Russia. They have more resources than we do. They have a more advanced industry in terms of strategic arms. But Ukrainians, we found this asymmetric solutions. That is why it was so vital for European Union and Denmark to be ready to procure with their own money our Ukrainian products for our army. So other states, which maybe is not so powerful in terms of arm industry, we ask you to see this example and maybe run the same program for Ukrainian industry, because our producers, they saw this truly strong partnership with Denmark, and that is why they would be ready to localize part of their facilities in Denmark and provide their experience to the state, and that is why our common security would be stronger. So if a European government is looking for an opportunity to localize Ukrainian asymmetric solutions maybe in their country, or they want to start a GV inside Ukraine, the best first step which this government could make is to start financing the industry directly. And that is why your embassy in Ukraine, they will start working along with producers, and it would be easier after that to gain this experience for your own security.
Thanks. There's a lot of talk in Europe about changing the funding model, pumping more money into the defense industry, defense tech as well. There's also a worry about the reliability of the old relationship with the United States, and an ongoing debate in the EU how wide the door should be open to American companies. Where should the balance be? Should the EU be looking, I guess you could call it the French model, building up strategic autonomy in Europe, keeping that door closed, maybe opening it to the Brits and the Canadians, but not so much to the Americans? Or is that a incorrect and destructive approach?
The first, of course, I think the main issue what we have in Europe, that we have a still very much fragmented market. I think given this Ukrainian example, that I think best what we can do, we can include the common EU defense service product market, if this kind of things really exists. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist, because what we see is still that all defense companies should do basically 27 times go to market, because there are still 27 different markets with very high entry barriers. I think this is the main fundamental issue if you talk about
unifying the defense.
Yeah, because I think there are the main issue also from the capital market point of view, because there are already a capital available for European tech companies, but if they not scale up, it's hard to invest. And maybe you can do it in France or in Germany based on just the local national demand. But if you are coming to smaller countries, as from Denmark or from Estonia, so basically you should go. This is the export market. And if we do not have this kind of principal understanding that we build a common European deterrence, and for that we need a common European defense industry as well. And this is the based on the common market. I think it's really, really hard to basically build these kind of success stories, especially what is the comparable with US, because in US you must do this kind of go-to-market just once. We have this 27, and if we go beyond the European Union, even more. I think this is the one thing. The another thing, of course, that if we talk about European strategic autonomy, that the first, and this is very much related with the capital availability, that we should keep our own best tech owned by Europeans. That if we even talk about those well-known success stories, Helsinki, for instance, that Helsinki is basically quite large part owned by US already. That if you talk about even the European large primes, they also some part owned by US companies. That definitely still, basically, if you look the all life cycle of the one company, that we have maybe this kind of first part, this very such early financing, it start to get in place based on the angels, basically growing VC scene. But if you talk about the scale-ups, if you talk about the mature companies, there are still quite a lack of capital.
Jamie, we talked a bit about this before. You had some strong views on that.
I think this is almost an existential question for Europe. I mean, I think it's completely understandable that there's more talk of European autonomy in the defense space. But when it comes to AI right now, you have a significant transatlantic tech gap. You have nothing like Silicon Valley in Europe. You have pockets of innovation like Ukraine, but still it's not at the same scale and the same level. The best engineers and best computer scientists in Europe often end up in the US because that's where the energy is, that's where the innovation. Now that should change over time and Europe should develop its own ecosystem, but I don't think walling European innovation off from American innovation is going to lead to success for Europe. It's only going to lead to Europe falling further and further behind. And so I'm still hopeful, despite the tensions in the transatlantic relationship, that this is actually one area where you might see partnership with the Trump administration. Even Vice President Vance specifically mentioned this area last week, given his background in venture capital in Silicon Valley as an area for cooperation. And so I think that's a much smarter path for Europe, is to partner with US tech companies, learn, incorporate, build here in Europe as well, but not go entirely your own way, because I just worry that that will mean Europe will fall behind the US and China ultimately.
You're certainly seeing that with START and EDIP and the other EU programs, this sort of debate of what percentage of production should be based in the US. I'm afraid, I know you want to jump in, but I'm afraid we've run out of time. So.
No, I just a very short comment that basically answering your question that what kind of model we are really need for Europe, that I think it doesn't fit definitely together with the state-owned primes type of defense industry. I think we also need the private capital market-based defense industry here in Europe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, we have to end.